So today we're going to be looking at a tree and trying to identify it in the winter. So winter tree ID, again, is always really difficult, and different species are easier to identify in the winter than others. So one thing to always look at is the shape from a distance. So you can see that this one has a fairly upright, kind of oval or rounded shape. A lot of the branches connecting at a central point there. And if we walk up and get closer to it, we can look for some other features. Bark can be quite useful to look at as well, so let's have a look at that first. So on this particular tree we have quite smooth bark, perhaps the occasional crack or grooving in it. We've got moss and some lichen, some lighter and darker spots, but overall the bark is quite smooth. This particular tree I've heard described as it almost looks like an elephant's knee or an elephant's leg. So that's one trait of this particular tree. And then the next fun part is to start looking on the ground for things. So I always like this part. You never know what you're going to find. Can be quite difficult because sometimes you're not sure what tree it came from, but in this case it's fairly obvious. So we have a casing. Actually, we're in luck here. If we look a little closer, we even have some of the seeds or the nuts on the ground here. So these were inside these casings, and they're actually edible too if you are desperate. So let's hope it doesn't come to that in these dark days. But so we got the casings, we got some nuts, and we're in luck too because this particular tree, the leaves are quite durable. So we're basically into springtime here in Vancouver, and yet we still have leaves on the ground. So we can have a closer look at some of the leaves. Here's a nice one. So yeah, you can see they're entirely intact. Simple leaves. Fairly smooth, slightly wavy margin. And then we can count the leaf veins on the back side too. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Alright. So we got about 8 leaf veins. And that's significant for telling this particular beech tree from another beech tree. So in our region we mostly have European beech planted, and not the American beech as much. So the European beech has the 6 to 9 leaf veins and the not as toothed, more smooth leaf margins. One thing that's also very helpful to look at is the buds. However, they are very high up in the air, and I am not that tall, so I'm going to try and zoom in, see if we can have a closer look at the buds. Oh yeah, that's not bad. So one thing you can probably notice is they're extremely big and very pointed, and that is a really good trait of this particular tree as well. So we're looking at a European beech, Fagus sylvatica, and those are some of the major traits. One thing you can sometimes see on them too is that the actual beech nuts are still hanging in the tree, so that can sometimes be helpful. And this is another tree that holds its leaves well in the winter even, particularly near the crotch or kind of branching points. You'll sometimes see leaves still on them even this time of year, so that can be a helpful identification trait as well. There's actually different cultivars or varieties of this tree that exist as well. A lot of the ones that are planted in the urban environment are more of an upright, a narrow growing, what they call fastigiate or columnar type of growth pattern. So very, very upright and narrow compared to this. And to me, the branching pattern looks almost like unbraided pieces of rope. It kind of has that undulating pattern to the branching. So yeah, those are probably your most common cultivars, are these upright, narrow ones, other than this more traditional species cultivar. All right.